Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at Riderflex. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the Riderflex show for updates on new episodes. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out the book we recently launched, The Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring, available for purchase on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Ben Wright on the Riderflex podcast. Hi, Ben. How are you?
Steve, I got to tell you, I'm doing pretty good, bud. How about yourself?
Man, you're a good-looking guy. Damn. What are you? Were you next model or what's going on?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure this isn't going to have no video. And so we're going to let the audience just believe what you're saying is true.
No, this is video. You're on video. I love that hairdo, man. I mean, geez, look at that.
I got a lot of hair, brother. I got to tell you, I used to cut it super short because it's crazy curly. And I just never wanted to mess with it. And then COVID happened and, we all were locked down. And I said, forget about it. I'm going to grow my hair up for the first time in my life. And now it's completely just out of control. So
how about when you were in high school, junior high or anything, middle school, did you ever let it?
This is only going to resonate with a certain age of listener. My nickname in high school was Fletch.
What?
I played basketball and my hair curled up in like 7th or 8th grade, right? You'll figure out the timing. 7th or 8th grade, it just like curled up out of the blue. I had no idea what to do with it. So I started taking a comb and like throwing it out. And it was huge. And I got the name Fletch.
I love it. So you played basketball in high school, huh? Were you an athlete? Were you a high school star athlete? What's the scoop?
I did. I wasn't the largest school. Grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It wasn't the largest school. There was, I think, 4 divisions. We were in the 3rd division, so close to the top. Right. I was a decent athlete, man. I played all the different sports. Basketball was my favorite. We won state 6 years in a row, our team. We had a really, really good basketball team. And,
wow.
Sadly, my senior year was year 7, so we lost in the championship, but it was a great run.
Oh, my God. Isn't that, when I talk to people your age, if anybody, any sport, if they lost their senior year in the championship game, like it's something that it stays with you forever, doesn't it? Like it never goes away.
It never really goes away, man. It never really goes away. Kudos to the other team. They shot 92% from the floor, or 92% from the line, 75% from the floor. They had an absolutely lights out game. They deserved it. They played really, really good basketball that day, but it never leaves you.
It never leaves. So you grew up in New Mexico then?
I did.
Tell me about your family, mom, dad, siblings. Give me the story.
Man, I have 2 sisters, much older, 8 and 10 years older.
Were you a mistake? Were you like, oops?
Totally.
Like, oh.
Yeah. My parents tried for a few years, weren't successful, and then 8 years later or something like that, surprise.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. Surprise. Pretty funny.
So your dad.
Here you go. Here's a personal one too. My old man was a nuclear physicist. Smart. So smart. He actually got his PhD in physics in like 2.5 years, and he was already out of school. And they messaged him. They didn't have email back then. They got in touch with him and they said, you forgot to do a class. And he said, well, I got my diploma, so whatever. So long, suckers. He was so fast. He graduated his PhD in physics in record time. So smart guy.
Still around? Is he still alive?
Yeah, folks are still around. But he's pretty straight arrow. But they told me, this is pretty funny. I hope they never listen to this podcast. He goes, Ben, there's only one time in my life that I ever got stoned, and it was, the night you were conceived. So probably explain a
lot. Straight arrow, so pretty conservative family. So not if you partied when you were in high school, did you have to sneak around? You couldn't talk to mom and dad about it, huh?
Yeah, I didn't really party all that much in high school, to be honest, man. I was into sports. I was kind of focused on my grades, and I don't think I even took my first drink till like after my junior year of high school or something like that.
Wow.
But I was pretty focused.
Okay. How about in college? Did you loosen up in college a little bit? No?
I loosened up a lot in college.
I mean, you went to Notre Dame. You went to Notre Dame. I mean, I'm guessing you went to a few parties.
Oh man, I majored in drinking at Notre Dame. Yeah, I once sports was over, I really focused on it. It's pretty funny, and lo and behold, right, my grades suffered. I mean, like I think I limped out with like a 2.9. It was I graduated, I got my degree, I got a job. I think I got what was important, but I did not sacrifice. I did not sacrifice, my fun time for my studying time.
It's funny you mentioned the 2.9 because that's what I graduated with. And my oldest son saw those papers in the safe one day. We were going through the safe to get something. I can't even remember my transcripts from there. He's like, Dad. He's like, really? 2.9?
My kids say the same thing. They're like, "Why do you tell me I have to get a 4.0?" And I'm like, "You just do. You just do."
How did you pick? Why Notre Dame? Was that did your parents go there or something? Why'd you go there? I mean, it seems like a different type of choice for a kid from New Mexico, I would think. Why Notre Dame?
You know, See, my parents had this deal for all of us kids. They'll pay for us to, and I'm blessed. I'm a pretty middle class family, but blessed in that my parents had the means to at least afford college for us. And I still had some student loans, but by and large, they were able to, afford most of college. But the deal was for all of us, my parents will help pay for college as long as we go out of state. Because they wanted us to get out of New Mexico, to be honest, right? But they also wanted us to kind of go see the world a little bit, right? And not kind of get stuck at home. And so
Okay.
I just have a really early memory, probably 5 years old, of my uncle who had graduated not too long at that point, from Notre Dame. And he had a national championship ring in fencing. And I just remember him talking about how much he loved his experience at the University of Notre Dame, and I fell in love with it at like 5 years old and decided I think that's where I want to go.
Okay, very good. And your mom, by the way, I forgot to ask, what she do for a living, or did she was stay at home mom, or did she have a career?
No career, yeah, health educator. So she worked at the university system in Albuquerque, and a health educator. Incredibly bright, incredibly driven woman, but really focused on kind of helping people make healthy choices in their lives. So yeah,
That's good. That's good. Put 3 kids through college. Then what the sisters? What do they do?
yeah, I'm the only one in business, man. My eldest sister is a physical therapist, and the middle sister is a veterinary anesthesiologist.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. So where'd the entrepreneurial bug come from then? How did that how'd that happen?
I was a mistake in all the ways, in all the ways.
Yeah, seriously. And that's why I asked those family questions. I'm trying to always kind of figure out like where did this how'd that happen, Ben? What now you seem like a very personable guy. Your people skills are obviously excellent. Communication. I mean, you could probably walk into a room and make friends with anybody. That's my read on you in the first 5 minutes.
That's kind.
So sales and business development for you was an easy, right? That was like, okay, yeah, this is right up my alley. But where'd the entrepreneurial, where'd that come from? Talk to me.
I started, most of it's just kind of by chance. I'd like to tell you, I had like a plan to get to Notre Dame, but then I never had a plan after that.
Okay.
For the most part, as I went on my career, it kind of changed a little bit, but I started studying pre-med and psych, a double major at Notre Dame. And I very quickly realized that, I didn't want to be a doctor and that I would never make any money being a psychologist. And so I switched over to business school. And I love math, being the son of a nuclear physicist. I just always got math. I understood math. I have that left brain mind. Math has always been really, really easy. And frankly, I've just really enjoyed it. And so I chose accounting as a major for no other reason than I like numbers and you deal in the numbers. And
Plus
I got it.
You were flunking out of the other classes anyway, so you had to switch over.
Exactly right. exactly right. I mean, that looks a lot easier. Listen, Notre Dame has an incredibly strong accounting program. My senior year, it was 1999 and the economy was roaring. So there was some macroeconomic, tailwinds, but 97% of my class had a job at graduation. And so I also knew, I was focusing a little bit on my party and a little bit on school. I knew that as long as I graduated, I'd probably have a pretty good job. So it worked. And so I started my career in public accounting, and I ended up leaving and taking a sales job of all things after getting my CPA.
Yeah. I noticed that on your LinkedIn profile. I see that. I mean, did you get recruited by Price Waterhouse, by the way, right out of school?
I did. Did my internships, went to Price Waterhouse. Love my time there. Was planning to become a partner in the firm. But ended up deciding it was time to leave. Had a handful of, senior manager, controller opportunities at companies, but one sales job because my roommate's dad had an in for me at this company, and he said, "I'll take a flyer on you." And so I figured if that didn't work, I can go back to accounting. And to your point, I ended up being, relatively successful at sales.
Absolutely.
Talk to people, and
I could see it right away. Was your friend's dad? Did he tell you? Was he like, Ben, listen, you need to be in sales? Like, come on now. Were you getting pushed in that direction?
No, I'd like to say so, but it was more so I was doing the pushing. I was like, come on, just take a flyer on me.
Okay.
I can do this, right? Like I'm really good with clients. You try to pretend like you're selling in accounting. I'm selling projects. I'm not really selling projects. I'm just doing accounting, but I sold him on that. And so he took the flyer on me.
All right. And then you had a nice career. So you had a few stops along the way. We don't have to touch on all of them, but did you start to think at some point, I want to own my own business? I want to start a business. How did that develop for you?
It was that move into sales where you really are, to a certain degree, you're your own CEO, right? You own your own book of business, right?
Yeah.
When you get up in the morning, there's not really many people that have to push it. Like, it's up to you. You got to pick up the phone. You got to dial for dollars. You got to drive around to the really, shitty territory that they gave me and go knock on doors, right? And try to tell people, you need to change your phone system. You have to be intrinsically motivated. And honestly, I think generally in sales, you don't necessarily get like a ton of support. You're kind of on your own. You really have to go just make your way. And so it was there that I realized, man, maybe I have what it takes to, run an organization. So it was there that the dream started to germinate, especially once I realized I had a really solid financial background. I also had found success in front of the house in sales. I thought, it'd be really interesting to go make a run at CEO someday. And so that had kind of become the dream, as I wanted to, either start a company, buy a company, or maybe get promoted up to the CEO job. The problem is, I tell people I was pretty left brain as an accountant. So I'd sit back and I'd think, come up with an idea, and just nothing would happen. And so I kind of resigned myself to the fact in my mid to late 20s, all right, maybe I'll just have to buy a business one day, or maybe I can get promoted up to that CEO seat. And were you married when did you get married? When did you start the family? Where did that play along in this timeline? Got married in the late 20s, in my late 20s, out in San Francisco. We had actually met at the company at public accounting, fishing off the company pier. So we were both accountants and both went into sales of all things. And then started having kids in my early 30s, had my son in San Francisco. And then we up and moved to Denver, Colorado, and had my daughter there and 2 kids. Okay, very good. All right. So tell me, how does Velocity Global come about? Give me the story. And I'm curious as to how it
ties into the move to Denver and conversation with your wife when you say, hey, I'm quitting my job and starting this company.
So I was working. I'm a first time entrepreneur of Velocity Global, right? So every experience before this was, I was an employee. So I was an employee at this company, and I was kind of pigeonholed in my job. I was having a tremendous amount of success. Everybody was telling me that, but I was also seeing it myself. Like I was having a tremendous amount of success. I was driving a lot of initiatives. But it was very, very clear I was not going to get kind of promoted to that next level. That next level was the executive suite. The person above me was in that role. And the culture of that company was to hire from the outside. It just was not to give people opportunities to grow into a role. And rewind a year or two, I had moved to Denver and I looked around, and this is 2010. I looked around and I said, if this job ever ends, I should at least see what's going on here in town. So if there's interesting opportunities. And especially leaving San Francisco, I just didn't find anything interesting. Like this place is in 2010, there just wasn't a whole lot happening in Denver. So the idea kind of started to germinate that, man, if I ever leave this, maybe I'd have to think about starting my own thing. As luck would have it, I was really struggling with kind of my current job of just knowing I was going to be stuck in this position. As a matter of fact, I kept coming to the founder with all these ideas, and he literally kept saying, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Verbatim, just keep doing what you're doing.
Were you reporting to the founder at that time? Was there somebody between you and the founder?
There was somebody between us and the founder.
All right.
Yeah. Somebody between me. But just kept being, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing. I want to grow. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, I was sitting across from an executive of a company, and they basically said, all right, I see what you're selling me and I see what you guys have to offer, but that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is X. And it was basically the business model that we now do at Velocity Global. And I thought, gosh, that's really interesting. We don't do that. And at the time, I ran global partnerships for us. So I said, all right, we don't do it. Let me go look around and see if there is somebody offering this product. And I searched high and low, and there was nobody on the planet was doing this. And over the next month or two, that same conversation came up like a half dozen times with different executives at companies. And so I went to our founder and I said, hey, man, there's demand, right? Like they're looking for, they don't quite know how to articulate it, but this is what they're looking for. And nobody's doing it. Let's be in this space. And, Steve, you and I are talking today because he decided he wasn't interested. And it was just that confluence of, I was looking for that next challenge for me professionally. I was tired of being told, just keep doing what you're doing. I knew there was an opportunity here. I knew there was nobody else doing it. And so it was a chance to kind of manifest the dream.
That's great. Did you draw it up and then go back to those customers and say, hey, by the way, I'm leaving. I'm starting my own thing. Can you be my first client? Did you kind of orchestrate that while you were still employed? How'd that work?
Yeah, I tried to be, I shouldn't even say try to be. I believe in doing what you say you're supposed to do, right? And I signed a contract that said I would not compete, and I had a bunch of contacts.
But it's not competing. It's a different service.
It's not competing. Now, ironically, that founder said, I said, all right, you don't want to be in this space. I'm going to leave and I'm going to start this thing. And he goes, well, you have a 1-year non-compete. And I said, well, you just said you don't want to be in this space. What are you? So it's not competitive. But then again, there were a lot of contacts I made doing, business on behalf of that company. And so I wanted to do the right thing. And so I put my messaging out there all over LinkedIn, and I networked. And if you happen to network me into, somebody who I had spoken with previously, great, we've got that relationship. But could I have grown faster, quicker if I had kind of used that Rolodex I had created at that previous company? For sure. But I wanted to, it didn't feel right.
Did you start your company on weekends and nights while you were still employed, or did you just quit cold, boom, and went for it?
So the longer story is I convinced him, I said, let me work kind of nights and weekends on this and I'll come back to you with a business proposition. So that was about 6 months. And so while I did my day job at this company, and so I kind of shortcutted part of the story. At the very end, I came back to him like, okay, after 6 months of kind of nights and weekends, here's the plan, and this is what it looks like. And that's when he said he wasn't interested. Well, at that point, I had a fully baked plan, a model, but because of he was going to enforce my non-compete for a year. I went and took a job with another company, and I was relatively certain I'd start Velocity Global, but I wasn't 100% certain. So I went and I worked at this company, but I got to tell you, 3 months in, it's all I could think about. And so I worked for that company for a year. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to make sure I understand the timeline. This will be good for the aspiring entrepreneurs. When you went to this guy, though, were you going to make him a partner? Did you say, look, I'm looking for an investment? Were you hoping he would invest and help you get this started? Was that the plan?
So I did not look for an investment because it goes back to my accounting days, right? I did the math and I put together a model, and I realized that as long as I just didn't pay myself a salary for like 12 or 18 months, and I landed clients within the first, 6 months of the business at certain levels, that it could be sustainable and I could do it self-funded.
Well, why did you pitch him though? What were you pitching him for? Were you pitching him for an opportunity
to partner? So, all right, you're not going to be in the space. I'll stay out of your space. Let's try business to each other.
I see. Okay. All right. I got it. All right. Yep. So then you told him, okay, I got to go, man. See ya. You're not interested. And why didn't you just start the company then? Why take the other job? You didn't have enough money in savings. You weren't ready for it financially.
Yeah. Broke, man. I couldn't afford I couldn't fight a lawsuit. I had no money.
Yeah, but your dad was a nuclear physicist, didn't you? Hey, Dad, look, come on, invest. Did you call your folks?
They worked for the government, man. They spent all their money on my Notre Dame education, man.
All right.
So we didn't have anything left.
All right. So you're at home now. At this point, you have kids. Did you have kids then yet, or no?
I did. I had. Okay. Let me try to do the math here. I think I had both kids. Yeah, because my daughter's 11 now, and the business is 8.5 years old. So I had both kids.
I know what happened. So what happened was you told your wife, "I'm going to go start this. I'm going to quit my job and start this business." She's like, "No." She's like, "We got 2 kids at home. You're going to go get another job."
You're going to leave a perfectly good paying job to not take a salary for a year on something that you don't even know. There's not even a business for this. You're trying to create this out of thin air. Yeah, that's exactly how it went.
That's nice, honey. That's nice, honey. I support you. Please. Yeah. That's how it went with my wife too. Yeah.
I left and I took a job at that company. Not certain I'd start this business, but for the next year on nights and weekends, I kind of put all the pieces together. But I also spent for the next 6 months, putting the full court press on my wife to get her to say yes. Right. Obviously I did. And she'll tell you to this day, she's like, yeah, I'm glad you talked me into it.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. Did you form Velocity Global while the other job is still in place and kind of get it going a little bit? The reason I'm asking this transition piece, Ben, is because, we've had over 250 guests on the podcast, and I got to tell you, it's always that moment, right? It's always that turning point. Like, okay, if I file my LLC, am I going to work on this on the weekends? And how do I pay my mortgage? And am I going to quit? How am I going to cash in my 401k? Like, how do I make that turn? Right. And so that's why I'm kind of pushing you on the specifics. So what you find?
100%. Yeah, 100%. So I realized this was a thing in December 2012.
All right.
January 2013, I was still employed at the best company. January 2013, I became clear I needed to go approach the CEO. So I got time on his calendar the first week of February. And I was going to fly out to Baltimore, Maryland, or Annapolis, Maryland, to go pitch him on it. I realized a couple of weeks before that if he told me no, but I said, all right, let's partner on this, I needed to be ready to go. So I filed my articles of incorporation on January 31st, 2013.
Cool.
Because, and I remember being terrified, right? I didn't even know how to do this. I had a friend set it up for me. I had no idea what I was doing, but thankfully in Colorado, it's very, very easy to start a business. Matter of fact, it costs you $1 right now.
Yeah, right.
Thanks to Governor Polis to launch a company in Colorado. But I formed my articles of incorporation on January 31st. And like a week later, I had that meeting in case he said yes. In case he said, no, I'm not interested, but yes, I'll partner with you. I needed to be ready to go.
Oh, all right. But you're not a tech guy. And you're starting to basically a tech company. So, but you're not a software engineer. You don't know how to code.
Right. So I think this is so interesting. I think you can look at our story and this is how categories mature.
All right.
So this thing didn't exist before we launched Velocity Global, right? We were the first to market. Nobody knew how to do something like this. So you can't necessarily just go throw tech at it because you're dealing in some old world systems. We're talking about what we do is we help companies employ people everywhere. Yep. And so you have to have boots on the ground. You have to have people who sometimes walk into government offices and register employees for like Social Security and pension and those sort of things. It was a very service type business kind of right out of the gates. You couldn't just throw tech at it. Now, what has happened over time is once we've established this is a real industry, there has started being venture capital investment, which has started coming in, which just started having kind of tech entrepreneurs jump in and say, oh, well, yes, you can do this, but we're just going to use tech. And so anyway, all of us are moving down kind of the tech spectrum now. But it took us for the first 4 or 5 years of the business. We were truly a services company.
Interesting.
But today, this very day, absolutely. It's very much become a tech business.
Okay. Give us the overview. Give us the elevator pitch for Velocity Global as it stands today for people that may not have heard of the company. And by the way, it's velocityglobal.com for the listeners. Give us the company pitch as it stands today. Go for
it. What we do is we enable people to employ anywhere, right? And our tagline is simplify work literally anywhere. And so if you're looking to bring on an employee, whether in a different state or a different country, we have a platform to be able to do that, right? So you can get their employment contract, pay them payroll, get them benefits, the entire employee employment experience, as well as for the company side, that employment experience. And so let's say you're a 50-person, 100-person tech company. You can also be a 100,000-person tech company. We have many of those as our clients as well, but 100-person tech company, and you have 1 or 2 employees that you want to hire kind of outside of the jurisdiction where you've registered. That's what our model does, right? So it allows you to onboard them, pay them, employ them.
Does it take care of the legal stuff? Any? I don't have to worry about.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I can hire somebody in Brazil I can hire a recruiter in Brazil, and if I use your platform, I just sign up for your service and you take care of all that for me.
That's it. That's 100% what it is.
You run payroll for me too, right? You do it all. If a contractor puts in their hours, you run payroll. I don't have to worry about anything.
I had a friend best describe it once. He goes, Ben, my job is to find the very best talent and then make them be incredibly successful within the confines of my business, that which we do. If you take care of everything else, I will pay you a handsome sum. And that is what we do. It's literally all the compliance. It's all the payroll. It's everything you need from the company side as well as the employee side.
Is it legal for me to hire, to pay an employee from Brazil if my company's based in the U.S.? I guess I can, as long as I have all the right paperwork filled out.
So that actually is why the whole model exists. Is you can't be an employee in Brazil of a U.S. company. You have to be an employee of a Brazilian company because there's no way here in the U.S. that we can contribute to the healthcare system, to the pension system, right? That all comes with like company registrations, and frankly, the local labor laws want a neck to grab in case things don't go right. And so you have to register in those countries. Before Velocity Global, you had to go through, if you were to set up a company in Brazil, it would take you a year before you could hire your first employee.
Interesting.
Now, with this model, it's going to cost you literally pennies on the dollar as opposed to doing it the old-fashioned way of setting up a company. You can employ them in a matter of like a week. you've already got your payroll taken care of. You're getting their payroll spent in Brazilian reals. They're contributing to the pension program. It's all taken care of.
Well, does this replace QuickBooks if I'm running payroll and all that? Or I know if you use QuickBooks for your accounting, let's set that aside. I'm guessing you don't do that, but if I'm running payroll through that, can I eliminate that service through QuickBooks and just run all my payroll through your service?
That's exactly right.
Okay. And if what else does it do for me? Can it it can't do accounting, can it? It can't close my books for me, can it?
No, so we stay out of the whole accounting piece because honestly,
right.
if we're just dealing with contractors or full-time employees on our platform, you typically don't have, as a company, local bookkeeping requirements. So it saves you from that whole process. So yeah, we stay out of that. But as you look down the road, and down into the future, more and more it's becoming table stakes and just a given that through us or now a handful of competitors that have entered the space that we can do this employment everywhere. Next, companies are looking for, all right, well, how do you provide world-class benefits for my employees? How do you help me source, right? We're never going to replace recruiters, but we're going to partner with recruiters, right? And we'll have some really interesting tech along the lines too, where we can partner with recruiters and using AI and machine learning, finding you the very best candidate, regardless of under which star they were born. And then with a click of a button, you can just click hire now.
I love this. So how about this? So we recently had a client that, as a recruiting firm, Riderflex, we had a client that said, hey, look, can you just house the contractors as employees on your side? And I said, well, that's not really our model. That's not really what we do. Right. And so I had to find this third party to house the contractors over there. Can you take care of that for me?
That's it. Call Velocity Global next time.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that offline. Sure. Yeah. Because I look at, can you talk about the business model, the fees, how you sign up, what it costs me? Like if you were pitching me, is it? Yeah, go for it.
Steve, it's super simple, man. It is a platform to employ people anywhere. And so if you have employees that are moving from one state to the next or moving from one country to the next, or you come across this candidate in a state or a country where you're not registered, it's a per employee per month, like user right?
Per employee per month. Per employee per month. That's it. Can you tell the listeners what the price is, or you can't go into that on this podcast?
We're always messing with pricing, so I wouldn't want to put something out there that gets changed. But it is reasonable and it's worth every dollar. I can tell you that much.
Does it depend on how many employees I sign up?
Yeah, for sure. Right. The cost to do this, once you've kind of built out that tech platform, right, the cost to do it for more employees is oftentimes kind of less. That said, we're dealing with employment, and we're dealing with employment liabilities. And 2 employees are twice the amount of employment liabilities of 1 employee, right? And so you get certain economies of scale, but in certain ways you don't as well.
Do you take care of the unemployment stuff? Do you take care of?
We sure do.
I'm out for COVID, whatever. I mean, is that my thing, or do I when they call me, I'm like, no, you're not my employee. Call Ben.
Yeah. It's a combination, right? It's a combination. So we'll help you, Steve, your employee's out with COVID. Here's what you need to know if your employee comes down with COVID in Italy. By the way, if your employee came down for a couple of years, if your employee came down with COVID in Italy, they literally couldn't be fired, like regardless. And so, there's really nuanced and interesting, not that you terminate employees simply because they had COVID, but you could not, no matter what the circumstances were, you could not terminate that individual. And so that's what we're here for, to help you with. And we're also here for the employee. The employee calls and says, hey, I'm feeling really ill. What do I need to know? Well, here's your leave policy, right?
How do you find the experts on all this HR shit across the globe? Do you have third parties that you're leaning on for that, or do you have employees in all these countries that are helping you with all this stuff?
It's all the above. We have our own employees in 52 countries. We have internal knowledge base, which we do significant and extensive work on and have almost 10 years of experience populating, right? So incredible knowledge within that knowledge base, which we leverage every single day. We have global relationships with the top accounting firms, the top law firms. And then we also do some pretty unique things around sourcing that data from kind of open sourcing rules, law changes, as I said, that we're always up to date.
Interesting. Do you provide any HR services like, hey, Ben, I'm having a problem with Mary. I don't know what to do with her. Should I write her up? Blah, blah, blah. Do you do any of that?
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
For sure.
Okay.
As well. Yeah.
All right. But no recruiting services. Sounds like you need a partner for that. I know this really cool growing recruiting firm.
You know a good one? Yeah. We got a lot to talk about. But, and I appreciate you asking about the business. I really do. But it's interesting. I if you don't mind, I kind of want to go back. We were just kind of starting to head down a path about how much time you spent when you're launching that business. And I think this is really important. I think this is just, I'll share my own personal experience, but
please.
I know so many people who have yes, I've got this business. Oh, do you work on a full-time? No. I've got this full-time job, but I spend a few hours here and then I work on it. Those businesses never take off. Right. I just never once, and I'm sure there's other examples out there, but in my little sphere, I've never seen those businesses take off. Now, I have also seen businesses where you have committed 100% of your waking hours to that have also failed.
Yes.
But I'm convinced that if you're really passionate about this thing, if you really want to go and you got to give it a run, you got to throw yourself into it fully. And I know it's easier said than done. And I happen to be in a situation where we tightened our belts in a really, really big way, but we were able to live off my wife's salary for 18 months while I didn't take one. So, maybe not everybody's in that position. And we went into some debt during that time, but it was a calculated risk. And if I hadn't done that, we would not have, somebody else would have come along and launched a business like this, and you'd be interviewing somebody else right now.
18 months. Let that sink in, listeners. 18 months didn't get paid. Right. That's what it takes. Sometimes it's even longer than that. I remember. Same thing. I lived off my wife's salary. First 6 months, I didn't pay myself anything. First 24 months, I think I paid myself like 30 grand or something. I can't even
totally. Yes. It was peanuts, man. It was
peanuts. And I was making really good money as an executive before I quit too.
I know, me too. I had a great income and it was just all gone. And it's funny. I have an aunt who has owned her own business for a long time. And about 6 or 12 months probably into the business, she goes, "So how's the business going?" And I said, "We have been turned a profit since day one." And she goes, "Have you paid yourself yet?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Then you're not profitable."
Well, it's kind of true.
It's kind of true.
Yeah, it depends. By the way, if you're taking on, I don't know how much you can share. I know it's a private company, but do you want to talk about investors or how much cash you're taking on? And are you in a cash raise? You want to talk about any of that? Share anything with us?
Yeah, man. Happy to talk about it. That which I can at least. We're I think a fascinating story. The first 7 years of the business, we were totally bootstrapped, right? And again, by bootstrapped, I just didn't take a salary for 18 months. Mm-hmm. My first employees, their salary was like 30 grand, 60 grand. Just nothing, right? Totally peanuts. We were all kind of committed to turning this thing into something big. And with scale, we've been able to move that over time, right? Now my executives, in fact, my whole company is paid at a very different level than we ever used to be. But we bootstrapped this business over the first 7 years to over 100 million in revenue.
Wow.
It's fantastic. Really unusual.
You never, hold on. Let me just take a breath right there. You got to 100 million in revenue without taking any VC or PE money?
Profitable every year.
Wow. Okay. Holy cow. Well, guess what? You have the investors knocking on your door now because they want to give you money. They're trying to give you money.
They are. So We have now done, so that was the first 7 years. We're about 8.5 years in. Over the last 18 months, we actually now have done 2 rounds of raise. So we raised 100 million in early 2021. Wow. And we used those funds to actually do a couple acquisitions because we didn't have the balance sheet to do those ourselves.
And was the 100 million from one firm or from one firm? Can you mention who that is? Can you mention?
Yep, FFL Partners. They're a mid-market private equity shop out of San Francisco. Yeah, it's like a really strange journey to be self-funded to 100 million in revenue, and then go take on private equity. And then this last round was more traditional VC. So it's like a very almost kind of like unusual and backward story. And for entrepreneurs listening, it is in pros and cons to it. Some of the cons are trying to get VCs to understand when you don't follow the quote unquote script that you're supposed to follow. Like we had headwinds in the capital raise because it was just like, well, why are we talking? You just raised private equity money. I'm like, guys, okay, I know it doesn't follow like the exact same story that every other, VC backed company has followed, but look, and so, obviously eventually we got there, but the pros are, we took a look at the average employee stock holdings of companies in the last 18 months that have all raised a B round, and we have more than double. So said another way, because we were able to stay self-funded for so long, our employees at Velocity Global have more than 2x the average, actually anybody else, more than 2x anybody else in terms of equity holdings in the business, because we were able to give back to our employees because we didn't have outside investors.
That's impressive. Are you saying that the VC and the PE firms are not in control of the cap table? I figured you had given up control after taking on that much money.
No, that's correct. So we raised 100 million beginning of last year and sold a portion of the business. We raised another 400 million early part of this year from more kind of traditional VC investors. But we still own over 50% of the business.
What? Oh my God. Okay. We should have done this one over bourbon or something. I mean, holy shit. You're telling me you've raised $500 million and you're still in control of the cap table? Holy shit. All right, entrepreneurs. If you ever want to, any aspiring entrepreneurs out there, if you ever want to know how to do it, here you go, right here. Here you go. Do you know how many people have been on this show and that have taken money from people and there's like, oh my God, Steve, taking that money from the VC firm is the worst thing I've ever done because now they're in control of the business and blah, blah, blah. Wow, bro. Okay.
I had a really funny moment. Year ago where, I try to keep tabs on what's going on in the market and some others. And there was another company who was kind of making some noise about maybe putting our businesses together. And so, you always take those conversations and you have them.
You went to drinks with the guy. You had drinks with the guy.
That's right. Okay. And so we talked about what a combination would look like. And, obviously that deal hasn't happened, but we talked what a combination would look like. And once they realized, how much, we own, it quickly became, oh my God, you would own, in this combined business 5 times more than I do. Right. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to taking capital so early. So.
Okay. Well, now, all right, you're still in control, but now that you have taken that cash, life is a little bit different for you. Not as different as it would have been if you would have lost control, but it is a little different. Now you got people in your ear a little bit that you'd never had to deal with before. Are they pushing you towards, okay, here's our whiteboarded plan, and when we get to here, we're going to sell to this company, and they're, is it all dialed in for a potential sell? What's the plan, Ben?
Yeah, we're fortunate in that we have a lot of money on the balance sheet. And we're, with the exception of 2022, where we actually pulled kind of a bunch of levers for the first time, tried some different things. We moved into the red for the first time as a company. We're going to swing back into profitability next year.
Was that because of acquisition? Was that because of acquisitions or software? Or what was that?
Now we just said, let's go do some really interesting things from like a sales and marketing perspective.
Okay.
A lot of
All
them
right.
that were successful, some of them that were not.
Okay.
And so it was a wonderful exercise. It did move us kind of quickly into a burn, not quickly into burn, but a little bit into a burn. But we're actually pulling right back out of that middle of next year.
I just said,
So
hold on. I'm
go
just thinking the PE and the VC guys are like, Ben, for 9 years you're profitable, and we give you all this fucking money, and then you in 2022 you lose cash.
To be very clear, it was the private equity guy saying that, not the VC guy saying that.
Okay, just kidding.
But yeah, no, you're right. But now the VC guys are going, well, the VC guys have completely changed their stripes, and they're going, you really ought to be profitable. And I'm like, wow, if that was word to ever escape.
What are you talking about? You're VC. You want me to grow? That means lose money. What are you saying?
That's right.
Oh man,
listen, I have a great relationship with our investors. We hand selected our investors, and those who sit on the board are they're amazing. They drive us and they drive me. They've been great partners for us. Great partners for us.
Very good.
And we are totally aligned in kind of where we're heading with this company. We are very blessed and fortunate in that, we're not going to be burning cash for the foreseeable future. We have a really, really strong balance sheet. And so, again, not at this very moment, technically not profitable, but right around the corner, swinging right back into profitability. And so we're in a great position to kind of choose our own adventure after that.
I got an idea. Before you find a buyer, what you need to do is you need to acquire a really good recruiting firm to add that to your suite of services, get that in the mix. And then, you got even more to offer. I'm thinking that might be, we should chat about that.
I like that. If you know any recruiting firms, you should tell me about that. That's right.
That's pretty
cool.
So you do have some competitors, but they're all smaller and people you're thinking you might acquire, or you just gonna crush them. What's the deal with the competition?
We've had three come to mind of competitors who in the last 5 years have entered the space, have taken on an absolute ton of capital, and in their cases have actually done some good stuff with it. And so in fact, there's probably one in particular that they took on an absolute ton of money, and they've done a very good job of allocating that capital, in my opinion. They're the ones we kind of look at most closely, but it's fortunate to kind of be in the leader position. That's because great. You can watch and you can observe and you can react, and you can kind of drive the narrative.
Okay. We're running out of time, so I'm going to ask you a couple of last minute questions here. What keeps you up at night the most right now? As an entrepreneur and a CEO and chairman, there's always things that keep you up at night, but what keeps you up the most, like routinely? What do you stress about the most right now?
The two things I stress about the most are, one is just simply execution, executional risk. I am so blessed of this little industry that we stumbled across, and the team that we've put together. The TAM in front of us is so huge. I mean, we're at hundreds of millions of revenue today, and I feel like, Steve, we're literally just getting started. Like, the TAM is so large in front of us. So it's not an issue of, are we going to run out of clients? Are we going to run out of opportunities? It's an issue of, can we execute to the very best of our ability? So fortunately, I have an amazing team in place. I mean, my COO is from Uber, my chief people officer is from Cornerstone, my chief technology officer is from Intuit, my product leader is from LinkedIn. You kind of run down this list. I've got the right people. We just need to execute.
Yep. It's scary. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, it's scary when you're growing that fast. Yeah, you're always worried about the wheels coming off the bus because you're moving down the highway so fast. Yeah, totally get it. What was the second thing you were going to mention?
Balance
for your life, for you personally.
Yep. Yeah. For me personally. Yeah, I was just driving my son the other day to a baseball practice. and we were in the car and we were just kind of talking, and he's 14. So the fact that we get to talk and he even talks to me a little bit is still pretty good. But, we were talking about, and he's actually asked a little bit about the business and kind of what's coming up. And I was like, man, we're coming into a period where I'm going to have to kind of really grind for a little bit. He basically said, Dad, I wish we had a little more time together.
Ooh, man, that's tough. That stings. That stings.
It stings, man. And I've been, that's the thing. Operational excellence keeps me up at night, but it's that balance that keeps me up even more, right? Yes. They're hard trade-offs.
Yeah, they really are. I would encourage you, as a older than you guy who already has granddaughters, that 14 to 18, especially if they're in sports and activities or whatever, man, that 4 years goes by super fast, Ben. And I would encourage you not to miss. I try to go to everything you can go to, because I'm telling you, there will be a moment where they're 19, 20 and it's over. Like they're gone, they're off to school, and you can't go back. You can't press rewind. You can't be like, damn, I really wish I would have gone to that one game when he was a junior and blah, blah, blah. Cause you can't go back. Like, you cannot go back. And
so how do you do it? Like, can you do it? Can you, I mean, can you run and lead an organization from hundreds of millions to multi-billions in revenue and be at every one of those games?
I think you can be at most of them if you set the priorities. I think, especially if you have the right talent. By the way, the talent that you picked off didn't sound cheap. So
they're not working for 30 grand a year anymore.
Yeah. That talent sounded expensive. So I'll be like, hey guys, listen, I'm paying you a shit ton of money. So I'm going to be over here at the softball game, and don't fuck it up. Because I do that now. I've gotten much more balanced with it myself now at this age, to where I will take time off. And I say to myself, I'm going to do the best I can to run Riderflex and have a balanced life. And it is what it is. I've learned that killing myself and not having a balance, it's not healthy mentally, physically. You start drinking too much, whatever, your vices come into play. So I would encourage everybody listening to have a balance. It's just not worth it. Almost killed myself back when I was in my 40s, and I'm not doing that anymore. Last question. I know we're out of time. Very last question. If you had to define your core purpose in life right now, moving forward, what is that? Like, what is the overall core purpose? And not just like, okay, take care of my family. Okay, let's set that aside. Of course, take care of your family. Yes, that's a no-brainer. But beyond your family and just taking care of them, what is Ben's core purpose?
I can rattle this off right off the top of my head, because it is unchanged from a decade ago when I sat across from a coach. And it was honestly one of the things that gave me the freedom and flexibility to kind of mentally get to a place of starting this company. Is we went through this exercise of, fast forward 20 years, fast forward to my deathbed, wherever it happens to be, what are the top things that are most important to me? What was my purpose? What did I accomplish? And number one was to take care of my family, right? So that's number one, take care of my family. Number two was to give back to the community in which I live and work. And number three was to provide a once in a professional career opportunity to everybody I work with.
Well, you're doing all three.
To a certain degree, right? But I'll tell you, my son in the car the other day, right? Dad, I wish we had more time together, right? I mean, I have been successful in putting food on the table and a roof over our head. But am I giving back to my family kind of everything that they need? We have given a truly kind of once in a professional career opportunity to our employees, but think about what's coming next. Like, our work is not done there. And in terms of giving back to the community, we do a lot, but man, there's so much more that we can do too. So I think it's never ending.
Well, congratulations on what you have built, my friend. I mean, really, some of the numbers you rattled off earlier. I mean, wow. I have not had a guest that got a company to $100 million without raising cash. That's the first. Thanks, so, wow, really impressive. Congratulations. And just one more time, for the listeners, I want to make sure velocityglobal.com. And of course, Ben Wright loves for you to send him LinkedIn connection requests so that you can then pitch him things to try to get him to buy. Right. He loves that. Just send him a bunch of those. I'll put his personal address and phone number in the post. Appreciate you sharing your story on the Riderflex podcast, my friend. Thank you.
Steve, it's been a true pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.